All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to episode 10 of the KissFAQ podcast. Joining me today is Lonnie and Ken. Welcome back to both of you. Andrew, where are you? We're still waiting. You might be able to join us later. Just as a matter of, current affairs and history, last week we spoke to John Regan, who graciously gave us some time to talk about the history of Frehley's Comet and Fate by Four, the new band for which had just been announced that AJ Pero was going to be the drummer. AJ, of course, was Twisted Sister's drummer, who passed away today, so I'd just like to give a shout out to Todd and John, and obviously AJ's family, friends, and fans on his passing, and offer our condolences to them. He was going to be going into the studio with 4 by Fate in May, so, just condolences to all his friends and family. Today's episode was suggested by Andrew, who unfortunately can't be with us, so we're going to go with his topic anyway, and for our 10th anniversary, we've made it through 10 episodes, or hopefully we'll make it through 10 episodes. We're going to talk about Kiss's 10th anniversary tour and album, which of course was Creatures of the Night. So, Ken and Lonnie, why don't we just start with the album and, our favorite tracks, least favorite tracks off that album, where this album really fits into our fandom. So I'm going to throw this at Lonnie first.
Okay. Well, Creatures of the Night is one of those albums that I grew up with. I became a Kiss fan because of my older brother, and he had two cassettes, one of Destroyer and one of Creatures of the Night. So Creatures of the Night was one of my very first exposures to the band. And we listened to that tape so much, like some of the others in the early 80s. We wore it out so you couldn't even play it anymore, but I still have it just for sentimental reasons. And I love the album just from top to bottom. It's just one of my favorite Kiss albums. It'd be in my top 5 for sure, Kiss albums. And standout tracks, obviously, the title track, Creatures of the Night, when they play, and it's one of those tracks too that I never thought I'd get to hear live because of I didn't see the band until the reunion tour in '96 was the first time I saw them. I should have saw them on the Revenge tour, but that's a topic for another day. And it's a good story. And when they did the reunion tour, they weren't playing stuff off Creatures, and I never thought I'd get to hear the title track, Creatures of the Night. So when they played that in Vegas, I was just having the time of my life. And War Machine is also a standout for me. Obviously, it's just it's really become over the years a signature Gene song. And those two tracks for sure. I really like Keep Me Coming. It's a great tune. And I'm probably not going to be the only one to bash on it, but I love it loud. It's a good song, and I loved it when I was 5 years old, singing along with it. But it's just been worn to death on me. I skip it whenever it comes on anymore. But Creatures is when I saw that it was suggested for the topic today. I was like, oh, I'd love to talk about Creatures because it's just one of those albums that just really means a lot to me for a lot of sentimental reasons.
Right, cool. Ken.
Yeah, I was about 5 years into being a Kiss fan when I was able to pick that up. I had a friend that worked at Tower Records, and he was able to get me the record like a few days before the release, which was cool. And I took it home and put it on and pulled out the lyric sheet and started going along with the music, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing, how loud everything was, and the drums. I mean, that's the best I've ever heard any drums on any album since, before or since. And the music, it was all good. I couldn't tell who was playing. Well, I thought it was the 4 that were on the cover, with Ace. And I couldn't tell you that he didn't play or did play on that album at that time. But all the songs are great. I particularly liked right off the bat Rock and Roll Hell, War Machine, like Lonnie, and I Love It Loud. But pretty much everything was, it was good from top to bottom. It's one of I would say it's in my probably my top 5 Kiss albums. And it was great. I didn't hear anything before it came out. It wasn't on the radio. I wasn't a bunch of publicity for it beforehand. It just kind of came out, and I was happy to listen to it. I think I called my friend. You got to listen to this thing. You got to get it when it comes out, And it was a great album.
Yeah, publicity seemed to have been very lacking, at least looking back historically. I'm in the same boat as Lonnie's. I was, only got into the band really in '85. So the album cover that is the album for me is the one with Bruce on it. When I
with
think
an ass on the back.
Yeah, and I always, we had a good thread about that on the FAQ about whose ass was in. I always thought it was like Paul or Jean's, not a model's. So, whatever. But it's the Nightscape picture with Bruce and Eric. Obviously, the non-makeup cover that makes Creatures my album. My 2 songs on that I absolutely love are "I Still Love You," which I think is one of Paul's all-time best vocal executions. It's also just a really, really well-crafted song. And "Killer." I just love the lyrics that are so Vinny in that song. Just the way that's all structured. And, I would have said years ago, I would have said any song on this album is a good song, after doing all the research for the various FAQ books, finding out that Rock and Roll Hell was a cover, kind of detracts from, me liking it, which is weird because a good song should be a good song. But having it be a BTO song, yeah, okay. War Machine, I like it. And I'll agree with you, Lonnie, as well. Creatures of the Night at Vegas was
just fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic. I can't remember if they did that in 2004.
In Australia they did. Australia they did when they kicked off Rock Nation.
Okay, so they didn't do it by the time they got to California.
No.
But I can't remember anyway, so it wouldn't matter. But in Vegas, absolutely stunning to have Creatures back. I think it was in the opening slot, wasn't it?
The show I saw, they opened with Detroit and then went into Creatures.
Okay, I think I was at the first show.
Yeah, I think they opened up with Creatures.
I should know this off the top of my head because I videoed the damn song and put it up on YouTube. So whatever. Fantastic. So that's my picks on that album. You're talking about "I Love It Loud" as a single. You say it's a song you skip, Lonnie. All right, what would you put out as a single from the album then?
I would put out the title track. It's one of my favorite Kiss songs, and the drums on that are just awesome the way it starts out. And I was really surprised that wasn't a single because it's just a phenomenal track. And whose idea was it? Hey, let's go back and remix this song and tune down the drums a little bit. Whose bright idea was that? Because the song is perfect the way it originally was put out, and to remix it was just I don't know. It's just it's ridiculous. I went back and listened to that '85 remix today, getting ready for the show, and I was just like, why? Why would you want to remix it? Because that album, the title track of that is just a fantastic song, and that's what I would have used as a single. But don't get me wrong, I Love It Loud. I think it's just worn on me over the years because of how much it's been done at shows, every show since I guess 2000 it's been done, and it's just like, you guys got better songs than that we can play. But as a kid, listening to that song and singing back and forth to the band, it was cool being 8 or 9 years old listening to that song. But it's just, I don't know, I'm just kind of jaded on it. I'm just kind of grown tired of it over the years.
Ken, do you remember ever hearing that on the radio back in 82, 83?
I heard it. I was working in a warehouse at the time, and we used to play, rock radio at that time, and it did play a few times on the radio, and I was kind of surprised that it was playing on the radio because, you know, let's face it, the radio didn't play Kiss. So I was very surprised, but it didn't last long. I mean, I may have heard it for about up to 2 weeks here and there, and then it was gone.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at issues of Billboard, it was bubbling under in January '83. I think it hit 102 on the Billboard. Well, it didn't even make the charts. It was just in the bubbling under charts. So, abject failure kind of in that aspect. What do you think would have been a better single?
I would have picked either Rock and Roll Hell, which you kind of dislike, or Saint and Sinner. I really like that song. I think it's one of Gene Simmons' best vocal performances, and it's kind of different from his normal style of writing. I really enjoy that one. I think from more of a radio-friendly format where, you know, you have some hooks in it. So those would be my two. As for if they would have put on It's My Life, I would have chosen that as the number one single. I still, today, I don't know why they didn't put that on there. I think it may have given that album a boost and put it to gold status of a record, and not have to wait until 1991 for it to go gold.
Yeah, maybe without doubt. But the price of failure for Gene with I Love It Loud was he didn't have a single release, did he? And again, until 1992. Mm-hmm. It was all Paul songs until then, so that's a pretty high price. What about the video?
Do you remember ever seeing the video for I Love It Loud on MTV in the day, Ken?
You know what? I never saw that video. I used to watch MTV a lot back then, and I never saw it one time I didn't see it until, I guess I don't know where I saw it first. I think I saw a snippet from like Entertainment Tonight where they, flashed the video. I'm like, where is that video? I never seen that before. So I didn't really see it until maybe Kissology. I can't remember when I first saw it, though.
Right.
And they weren't exactly on TV in America either, were they? For Creatures, I think Night Flight they did, and something to do with maybe New Orleans, a little bit of news footage here and there. It wasn't like they did the European tour and did live performances in Germany, Italy, and Holland. But in America, it's just one of those odd things.
I have a DVD of a bunch of the news footage for Creatures of the Night tour, and including Night Flight, and they were out there promoting it. I know that quite a bit, but it just didn't take off for them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the first time I saw the video. I don't recall seeing it on MTV. I think it actually,
is it on Exposed? Is it on Kiss Exposed?
That's what I'm just looking up for anyone who wants to wonder why I surf the internet.
I'll probably get criticized for even asking if it's on Kiss Exposed. How does he not know that?
I can't remember what's on.
I can't remember either.
Generally on the albums, and we wonder why Paul can't remember what's on. He's written the hundreds of songs. We're just
rock and roll over, if you ask him.
We're just the fans.
Anything's off rock and roll over.
Yeah, it's not on Exposed. That is the Rio version there. So I must have seen it on MTV back in the day, 85, 86, 87 at some point, maybe Headbangers Ball or something. Because that was the only access I had. I certainly saw it. The video, again, go to YouTube if you have not seen it, and if you haven't, and you're not a new fan, shame on you, because it's one of the band's best videos. It's really as they straddle the pseudo-performance thing that they were doing with Sure Know Something and I Was Made for Loving You, Shandy, and A World Without Heroes, in that it's performance on their rehearsal stage, mixed in with Howard Marks as the dad, the kid with the glowing eyes and all that. And I can't turn those pictures into 1,000 words today, so I better have another cup of tea.
Yeah, it's one of their better videos, even, too, because they didn't make good videos in the '80s, and that's really a standout video for the band. Other than up until probably their best video, in my opinion,
Unholy.
Yeah, maybe until Unholy, maybe
No,
best video they ever done.
No chance. You guys are just being unkind to Who Wants to Be Lonely. So,
oh. Yeah,
All Night.
I'll concede that.
So, the girls in it in those kind of win, but in terms of a gritty, bombastic video, I Love It Loud without a doubt. Until Unholy is the band's best video. For a single, what do I think? I would have thought title track. And that, of course, was released as a single only, I think, in the UK, where it went top 40. So maybe that's just my British side coming through a little bit more. Had it been recorded and released, It's My Life, without a doubt. But who knows what it would have done for the band. All right, let's look at the next part of this. Players. Ken, active KISS Army member, circa 1982. Any inkling of Ace? Any enough musical ear on there to be able to say, well, that's not Ace?
No. I knew it was different. I said, well, Ace is maybe playing a little different, or maybe Paul's playing some leads on it. I just thought it was Ace, and he's progressed. Got a little bit nimbler on the speed. I don't know. I really didn't know it. If you go before that, back to Dynasty, I didn't know Peter Criss wasn't playing most of the drums. So I guess my ear wasn't that. It was more of the whole sound of the song, all the instruments coming together as one kind of thing is what I hear, with the vocals. So, I couldn't pick it up.
Were you like, why isn't Ace singing a song though? Because he had sung on The Elder, he had sung 3 on Unmasked and on Dynasty. Did it strike you like, well, that's weird? Why isn't Ace singing at all?
You know what? I don't think it did strike me. I thought, oh well, maybe he didn't. He ran out of material after his big output in the last couple 3 albums and his solo album. So that didn't strike me. No.
What about you, Lonnie? Where did it fit into your listening experience, becoming a fan?
Well, I grew up with the album and I really liked it, and we had an old cassette, one of the original cassettes. It had the old makeup cover on it even. So that was my experience with it. And then when I got it on CD in the early 90s, and I got the great remix version. And, I really enjoyed the album, and in coming through and finding more and more out about the band as a kid, I'm like, well, who played on this? Who played lead guitar on this? Because one, it has Ace Frehley on it, and the other one has Bruce Kulick on it, and trying to figure things out pre-internet. And it turns out it was a different guy that was the true lead player on the album. It took a little bit for me to kind of piece things together, especially pre-internet, considering I had the one album cover and the other album cover, and it was a different guy that even played on. Which is really kind of strange when you think about it, that there's 2 different album covers, and neither one of them feature the guy who really played lead guitar on the album.
That's true. And if anyone wants to spend $100 on a really fake Brazilian so-called tour edition, my pet peeve is that damned album with Vinny on the cover.
Oh no, that's real.
Yeah, it's magically been discovered, but I guess things do magically get discovered, as recently found out with the Australian 100,000 Years single. So it can be 40 years after the fact, but the ink's still wet on the Vinny covers. Musically, I don't have the ear. I mean, I was the guy with Psycho Circus who couldn't tell that it wasn't Peter. But I don't think that really matters. Gene and Paul and Eric, star of the album for me. Drum, or
Absolutely.
Should I say the person who recorded his drums is the star of the album for me, because that is Eric's best drumming. It's the most noticeable thing, and I think it's the thing that we can be sure that he pretty much did all of that. I don't think there's any suggestion of any overdubs being done by Alan Schwartzberg. No additional cymbals. The guitars are apparently nothing to do with Bob Kulick. He did some work, but none of it was used. And here's another guy who just died recently, Mike Porcaro of Toto, is apparently on bass on one song. So you get a few of these kind of more obscure people coming into the picture. Jimmy Haslip did 3 songs. Steve Ferris, that's the Mr. guy, I believe, does the solo on Creatures. And then Robin Ford does lead on I Still Love You, and what's song A for? Rock and Roll Hell. So it's a mess. The rest is probably Vinny, noodling around. And Paul, of course, who's more than capable. But it's not noticeable. So
yeah, with so many players on the different musicians playing throughout the album, you can't tell. I mean, it's a cohesive from the start to the last song. Even you had Eric Carr playing bass on I Think I Still Love You. So
yeah, which is one of the weirdest things, Eric playing bass, and then there's Adam Mitchell, the songwriter on this. I mean, that's the cool thing about the album for me, is it's where they really start to bring in the outside writers that they needed so desperately after 10 years. It's their 10th anniversary, that they had gotten stale, that they needed an injection, and that's where Vinny really comes into the picture strongly, though I wouldn't have known at the time that he was that great of a songwriter. It's only with lyrics like Killer that you see the stuff that he was doing, where he was coming from. So how do you guys see the external songwriters in this picture?
It looked like Gene and Paul were really struggling to bring in material to the sessions, and I think they knew what they wanted to do. Like they knew that we need to go back and write a heavy Kiss album to mark our return to form, and I think they were struggling in finding their niche to do so, because they had been fooling around so much with Dynasty and Unmasked and The Elder and kind of changing their musical direction, that I think it was hard for them to go back and say, hey, Paul or Gene didn't have it in them to go write a Love Gun or a Almost Human or something to that ilk, to try to get back on track. And they needed those outside writers to kind of give them a push or to stir up the creativeness, I think, because they were maybe they were in the studio and they couldn't do it. So we need to bring somebody in, because what we want and what we're putting out just isn't there.
Right. So when we look at some of the songwriting, I mean, Rock and Roll Hell and War Machine obviously came from Bryan Adams and Jim Vallance. They submitted both of those songs to producer Michael James Jackson, who brought them to the band. Gene insisted on adding a verse to, I believe, one of the songs.
Rock and Roll Hell, I think he added a verse.
Yeah, and changing that ever so slightly, but that song's performed in the first couple of shows on the tour, and what I've always wondered is, it sounded pretty good, especially on the Rockford recording when you can actually hear it, and then it's dropped. And I've always wondered if they dropped it because they found out that it had been released on a BTO album, and maybe didn't know that before. That's just kind of me pondering, but that songwriting, they didn't do any writing with Brian. Gene didn't sit down with them, whereas all the stuff with Vinny working with the band was him being the go-to guy. Same with Adam Mitchell, I guess, because he comes into the picture at this time as well. Ken, do you think they needed help?
I think obviously they did need a little bit of help. I think Michael James Jackson, the producer, went out and asked for Bryan Adams and Vallance and to submit something to them. So I think they needed some help. They probably didn't know what to do after the Elder debacle, and it was so headed in a different direction back then, and they now wanted to head into a total opposite direction, go so heavy, as heavy as they've never been before. I think they needed a little bit of a push, like Lonnie was saying. to get their juices flowing and creative juices flowing, actually. So, yeah.
I don't think there's any point even suggesting was the album heavy enough as a counter response to Unmasked, which would have been the last album in the U.S. because obviously it's one hellishly heavy album. But I don't know how much help Paul and Gene needed. If they can write a song like "It's My Life" and not record it,
I don't understand that.
Yeah,
I just don't.
Or give it to.
How many times I try to think about it? Well, and there's only 9 songs on Creatures. Why can't you throw a 10th song on there?
It seems to me that maybe they didn't want to be overly too poppy or catchy because they went down that pop road just, a couple years before. So they were trying to go away from the very catchy type of chorus and so on. So It's My Life, which is very catchy, of a song. They kind of said, no, this is not going to fit with what we're trying to do.
They could have been so ahead of the curve in terms of the rock anthem
of the 80s.
Of the 80s with that song. For a band that lived and died on anthems in the 70s, I mean...
I just don't understand.
Look at those single releases. It's just weird. And I hate that version that was put on the box set, the 1998 version.
The drum machine in the background.
It's just wrong on so many levels. It lacks everything that that pretty crappy sounding demo has.
Yeah, you have to go to the Wendy O. Williams version. That's the only real good version you have now.
Yeah, we'll take this great song and we'll give it to Wendy.
Whose ideal is that? Gee, I just don't get it.
So
we got this great song, we're going to give it to her.
All this other stuff. Legends Never Die, another song Gene gave to Wendy. I don't know if it was demoed. It certainly fits in the catalog from that era, and I think the recording on actually I'm reading my own damn book here. Paul wasn't fond of it apparently, and they never put a vocal track on it, so Wendy got that one. The other big song that's omitted from the album, well, there's 2. Nowhere to Run was remixed for possible inclusion. That hadn't been released in the American market, only on Killers. And Back on the Street. So let's start with Nowhere to Run. Would it have fit on the album?
I think it could have fit on the album pretty well. It kind of has the same kind of feel, especially if it had been, the remix to fit on Creatures. I think it has a kind of a Creatures of the Night feel with Paul's vocals on there. I think it would have, fit in seamlessly on that album.
Does it compete too much with I Still Love You, do you think?
You mean Back on the Streets or Nowhere to Run?
Nowhere to Run. Either, actually. I guess we'll be able to ask the same of that song.
Yeah, I think Back on the Streets, I don't think they wanted 2 power ballads on the same album. And I think that's why they left that one off. And I would love to hear Paul sing Back on the Streets. But at the same time, had they put Back on the Streets on there and not put I Still Love You on there, we'd be clamoring for a great version of I Still Love You. But I think I don't know. I don't think Nowhere to Run would have competed with any other songs too much. I think it would have fit on there really well.
Yeah, one of the other songs that shows up on a prospective song listing years ago, there was this album flat for Creatures that a picture of it circulated with a song called Betrayed on the back cover track listing, and that's like a Vinny and Paul collaboration. I don't think anyone's heard it, or at least I haven't, so damn you all if you've heard it. There was a pretty decent Warrior instrumental with the same title, so I don't know if it was built on that. That was one of the other songs. And then, of course, Back on the Streets. What say you on that, Ken?
Well, Nowhere to Run, I think that would have fit. With the sound, if they recorded it with the same sound and the bombastic drums, it would have fit right in. And from that standpoint, it probably could have been the lead single. If not, It's My Life. If Nowhere to Run was on there, I think that would have been the single.
All these songs we're talking about, Mr. Person at Polygram, is, or Universal as it now is why Creatures of the Night should be the next deluxe edition.
Absolutely.
Paul Stanley vocal of Back on the Streets is probably one of the few remaining holy grails for me that I want to hear. That Frelly's Comet was doing live versions of Back on the Streets, and we've never gotten to hear a Kiss version of that song. It's one of those things I want to hear so badly. One of the other outtakes that did come out a few years ago is the Not for the Innocent demo. For me, that has all the balls that would have fit on Creatures. I mean, they have the material. So, Paul and Gene trading off vocals, I take it you both heard that demo.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Should have been on the album without a doubt. It's way too polished on Lick It Up. They're working on it, obviously, but great sounding song. And then there's like one or two other songs out there. Eye of the Storm, which is Gene and Michael Japp, and Chrome Heart. I think both of those were offered to other acts to record. But ton of songs where they wouldn't necessarily have needed Bryan Adams.
But they only went with 9 songs on the album.
Yeah. Nine songs on an album where they're kind of making their comeback. And
there's these great other demos out there that they could have used to at least put a 10th song on. But they only went with 9.
Back on the Streets, I believe.
What's the reasoning behind that? It's really strange.
Well, Back on the Streets was killed, I think, for legal purposes because it had been written beforehand. And I think that was Vinny and Legal and Publishing got it killed from the album.
No.
Not Vinny torpedoing it, but it was killed because it was published, or I don't know the full details on that, other than it's been mentioned as the one song that was killed for legal purposes, and that I believe was mentioned by Jeff Seuss online years ago. But still, that they could have had a 12 or 13 song album or a couple of really good B-sides. So it's a shame. The tour. Ken, this is going to be all about you, really, because you're the only one of the three of us who actually saw the tour.
Yeah, well, I did see them 3 times. I was lucky at the time. I had a friend living down going to Long Beach State, Southern California. And I had already purchased tickets for San Francisco, at the San Francisco Civic in Northern California. And he said, hey, they're going to play twice down here. Do you want to pick up tickets? And I was like, oh, yeah, go ahead. Let's go. So me and Buddy drove down there, and the first show was at Irvine Amphitheater. And we were almost front. It didn't seem like it was empty or anything. It was pretty well packed. I remember when the show started, I thought, oh man, this stage is awesome. And I kind of remember they played the tank kind of rolling sound at the beginning of the show. And I swear they had the little marks on the tracks. I swear that I saw the tracks rolling like the treads were spinning. I don't know if they did that with a lighting effect or what, but I swear it looked like they were turning. So they came out, and I believe, it was started, Creatures of the Night, and it was just from start to end, it was full bore. The other thing was new was, I think that was when we learned Vinny. It wasn't Kiss. I mean, it wasn't Kiss, but it wasn't Ace. So Vinny was there, and after looking at the tour program, which I still have from that tour, it's like, wait, who's this guy? What happened to Ace? So he was, I don't know, looking at Vinnie Vincent and watching him play, I was used to the Ace solos, and you know what I mean. The Ace solos are very memorable solos. They're always melodic, and they always fit the songs perfectly. And when Vinny was playing it, it was, whoa, what's going on here? Everything is in 78 speed on a turntable or something. What is going on? So I didn't care for that, but I thought, well, obviously he's a very talented guitar player. I was just hoping, well, let's see what happens. But that was one of the best shows, or the best tours that I had seen them. Just the set list and so on. I think the next show was maybe the next night, so my ears were already gone from the first night, and the next night was sold out at the Universal Amphitheater down there, and we were not quite as close at that one, but it was just another great show. So then a week later or so, we were up in San Francisco, and I believe San Francisco was the last makeup show in the United States. It was the last show of the tour. Even though they were going to play, Rio or Brazil, but it was the last makeup before they came back with it, in their reunion tour. So it was great. I remember the comments about Michael Jackson, I believe, in that show. Paul Stanley had the Michael Jackson doll or something.
Was that tour, or wasn't that 84? Animalize. I thought that's when he went all anti-Michael Jackson.
Well, I don't know. Now I'm trying to remember. I swear it was that one, but I could be wrong.
Gonna have to dig out the tape. And Vinny's solos, of course, are a little bit like a rat on acid attacking a fretboard.
So you saw him late in the tour. You didn't get to see Vinny use the bow. He didn't use the bow on his guitar solo.
He might have used it. I'm trying. It kind of struck a memory there for me. I think he might have. It's been so many years now. I can't say for sure.
But you saw 3 of the 4 shows with Motley Crue opening for them as well.
Yes, Motley Crue was very good. I think I picked up the Motley Crue album. I still have that vinyl on their own record label, Leather Records.
Right. Yeah.
I still have that vinyl, and I just picked that up in the store just by chance because it looked kind of cool. I said, well, I'll try it out and see how these guys are. And then it turns out they were opening for Kiss, and it's like, oh, this is cool. I know the record. I know some of the music. So they gave Kiss a run for its money. You could see they were very influenced by Kiss, and it was a good double bill, one of the best bills seeing both, when you have 2 bands playing.
That's probably why it worked well again with the tour. You've got Dad and the kids. The Kiss by then is the elder, and Motley Crue's the usurper coming along, and they would have been massive in Southern California in 83.
83.
Yeah, March.
Jealous. You saw a hungry Motley Crue and the Kiss on the Creatures tour 3 times.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like a hungry Kiss. I mean, they were hungry.
Yeah.
You could see that Kiss was very hungry, trying to get it all back again.
Yeah, and with an opening act like that, they would have been challenged to bring it all at those shows. All 3 of those shows, Bootleg Lovers, are out there on your your unofficial shows, and that's been the only way I've ever experienced this tour live is through the bootlegs. So I did a count up of mine and some online sources, came up with 25 shows archived to some degree or another through for this tour. And anyone out there wants to correct me and let me know that the ones that don't circulate, yeah, go ahead. I love being corrected if there's more out there. So I think I just want to quickly run through a couple of these that are the key recordings. First one, Sioux City. Second show of the tour. They're playing 6 songs from the album. Here you are, you're a band, you have 9 songs on your album, and you throw 6 into the set. When all you really had to do was get rid of I Was Made for Loving You and 2000 Man, Ace's songs, because obviously he's gone. 6 songs debuted that night, and I got to bring up my spreadsheet so I can actually remember which ones exactly. But But
they played "Keep Me Coming" that night.
Yeah, that was
awesome
probably done the first night, which nothing surfaced from. But Creatures of the Night obviously started off. I Love It Loud, Keep Me Coming, War Machine, Rock and Roll Hell, and I Still Love You. And Sioux City is below average. You might be able to get through it once. It's not going to be one you put on your iPod. Next night, Rockford, Illinois. And some people call this an excellent audience recording. It's been so hyper-processed. I don't think it's very good, but you can more clearly hear 5 of those Creature songs because Keep Me Coming's dropped from the set by the third show. So that's probably one of the key ones. Montreal, I believe that's the only partial video from the tour. Have either of you seen that?
I have not.
You haven't? Go on YouTube right now. No, that's a pretty decent one. You get to experience a little bit of the Creatures feel, but it's just not good enough. I think you really gotta hope that a pro shot does show up, and then
so amazing.
For me, as a bootleg collector, one of the earliest ones I ever got was Ottawa from January the 15th. I think that's probably one of the best ones from the tour, but it's just one that I've listened to so many times. The sets got very static by the 4th of January. 2 songs have been dropped. I think, just Keep Me Coming and Rock and Roll Hell are the ones dropped. And the set becomes static, and they start moving the songs around a little bit. But for the rest of the tour, they're either dropping a song here and there, not performing it, and it seems to be Strutter being the victim. But by the end of the tour, they've not added, they've not done anything substantial. One of the cool things to track down collecting-wise is the Peters Brother, The Truth About Rock, and that's the Christian anti-rock thing. Mike Brownveld on Otaku years ago had some of that recording, and it's got some of Bloomington, Minnesota on it, with one of the guys going in and actually talking about Paul's raps and the Satan-worshipping Kiss fans in the audience.
I remember listening to that when I was in high school on the Otaku website.
We were stopped. I don't know if it was the San Francisco Civic or a year later, but we were stopped by some protesters on our way into the Kiss concert. And we just kind of, blew them off. So it was prevalent back then that these guys were out there and, saying you should read the Bible and, this music is Satan, has messages on it and so on. But, it was happening back then.
Yeah,
was that in California?
It was in California, yeah.
Really?
Northern California, uh-huh.
Yeah, the Bible protesters were still around at the shows. When I went to Oakland, Sonic Boom tour, they were there. When I went on the farewell tour, they were there. So it's
when I saw them in Springfield, Illinois, in like the Westboro Baptist Church, whatever. They were outside front protesting, and my buddy's like going up and like being an ass trying to talk to him. Oh yeah. There's a video of him talking to him. It's hilarious.
But I think the cool thing about the Truth About Rock, the Peters Brothers, is that Gene's really getting into the kind of like trying to get into it with them on an interview. So he's trying to be all smart and go against people whose agenda just was not going to be bent by responding to them. So it's like with Trolls, giving them a platform just gave them an excuse to put out a cassette tape with him talking to them. And now starring Gene Simmons at Kiss. So I want to see what else is on this on our list today with this topic, because I've kind of gotten lost in the weeds of the bootlegs. The stage set. So, Ken, you had some great comments about, the tracks of the Tank. And that stage would be used for 2 tours, essentially.
Yeah, we saw it the next tour and Lick It Up tour. That was probably one of the top 4, stages for them, as far as I'm concerned. The way the turret had the big pipes on it, blew the smoke out, had the turret, blew out smoke, and had the it looks like a flash or a bomb, a missile or something shooting out of it to give that effect, right? And then the turret's moving back and forth and going forward. It would move forward for Eric's drum solo, and it was just, man, it's just metal, heavy metal. A tank is heavy metal. It just fit. It was very cool. I mean, there was no lasers or anything like that. Just your normal light show, pretty much. But it's just visually, it was very cool to see live.
And the costumes, they'd gotten rid of the pink and the green bushy tails and the capes, and I've never really figured out a suitably insulting way to describe Gene's lava suit, which just never seemed to make any sense of what it was to me. But he was back to wearing his armor. Didn't Paul have a little fox's tail or something? One of them had
a little cute little tank top he wore too.
Yeah, and he started wearing his own tour shirts as well for the
right.
For the Brazil shows. So I mean, visually they were back to hard as nails, leather. Vinny, I don't know. He just always looked strange to me with those gigantic buccaneer boots that he seemed to wear, and his costume just did not work. Nor did his makeup, because the little ankh thing, it looks more like looks like a bullseye target to me. But with the way some of the fans are towards him. All right, let's see where we are. Yeah, the turret. The turret is also, I'm just looking at Kiss Fan Shop has a great stage breakdown of all the elements in the live show for this tour, supported with pictures. So great one of the turret actually fired, and you can see all of this on it's on the Rio show, I believe, on Kissology.
Yeah, it's all there. It's pretty well documented on there. I mean, that's the only really good quality of that tour, which I am really jealous of Ken seeing it 3 times and the footage of it really being sparse, because just the songs that they played on that tour and just the interesting time of the band being with Eric and Vinny in makeup and playing a half-empty arena. It's one of the most interesting times of the band's history for me. And I just wish it was better documented, because it's one of my favorite albums. It's just like almost like a mystery tour, because there's so little, facts about the tour.
Yeah, I don't think that with that Rio show, that's not a good representation of that tour, because watching that and remembering what I watched for those other shows, it just wasn't the same. Plus, it wasn't. I think the daylight didn't help either on a lot of it. But I remembered it a lot more exciting.
Yeah, and people who have seen that tour say that, like you said, it's like it was one of the best times, if not the best time, I saw the band, because they were just so focused and determined and knew what they wanted, that we are going to rebuild this thing, and if we got to start from the ground to go back up, we're going to rebuild this thing. People, and I've heard a lot of people say it's the best Kiss show they ever saw. So I'm just jealous of the people that saw it, and just wish there was better documentation of it.
Yeah, and they had some other good opening acts as well on the tour. I mean, Night Ranger opened up a bunch of shows. Wendy O. Williams, Plasmatics, opened up a few, and then there's some no-name bands in some of the early shows. So, as a tour package, there was some decent stuff, even if the attendances weren't there. Where does it fit in terms? Is it a successful album? Did it really set them up? And was it mission accomplished? Ken, as the fan back then, what did you feel? You see them in concert. You picked up the album. What did you think Kiss was at that point?
I think it was mission accomplished as for what they were trying to do. Hit it hard and put out the heaviest and best album that they could at the time. as for the health of the band, obviously with Ace Frehley leaving and now Vinny in there, I don't know about the health, but the album, I think it put them in the right direction for the future, at least, even though it wasn't commercially successful, especially with all the things, even though they released all kinds of material, meaning they put a lot of extra singles out in different formats for I Love It Loud. They had that Double Groove album or single and some other ones, and it just didn't commercially. It was no good health wise, but and touring. I mean, they hurt themselves in the prior album so much that they lost a lot of the fan base, and I'm one of the fans that stuck through it all from all the ups and downs. So it's just those fans were going to see them at that point. The health wise they were slipping a little bit, but they were pointing in the right direction. Okay, this is our direction now. We're going to go this way and keep pushing forward. We'll see what happens in the next year or so.
Lonnie, I'll let you lead off with the revisionist view.
Well, I really feel they made an album that stood the test of time because, they're right now they're playing Creatures of the Night. They play I Love It Loud all the time. They play War Machine the last two tours. The tour with Motley and the tour with Def Leppard, and they're playing it now over when they played Japan and Vegas. They played that. On the farewell tour, Paul led into Black Diamond with parts of I Still Love You.
Yep.
They really made an album that, even though it wasn't accepted initially, that KISS fans looked to, and like we all said, oh, it's one of my favorite albums. It just sounds incredible. And it was a step in the right direction for them at the time. They knew what they wanted, and this is what we're going to do. And no, it didn't take off. So, obviously they went in a different direction. We're going to, not in a different direction, but obviously a different visual direction by taking off the makeup, obviously. But, it got them back on course for producing KISS-like music and not poppy stuff and concept records. So it's like I said, it's one of my favorite albums. I don't care for the remix version that they put out in the 80s with redoing War Machine and Creatures of the Night. Just two of my favorite songs. I don't understand redoing those songs. What is wrong with them? Whose idea was that? Not only whose idea was that, but why they go, yeah, it is a good idea. Let's do that. And then let's put somebody's butt on the back cover too on top of it. But and that's why I was so glad when they did the remasters in '97, and I got a good version of that album with the album cover that it's supposed to have, sounding the way it's supposed to sound. I was really thrilled at the time, and the sound of that CD today, you put it in, it just sounds so crisp and phenomenal. They did a great job on the remaster. Obviously.
Well, yeah, you go one step better than that with the HD Tracks version that came out last year. Mm-hmm. It's the '97 remaster on steroids.
Really? I gotta do that.
It really,
especially for that album.
Yeah, the '97 remaster. I remember getting that, and of all the albums, it blew me away just how sonically, what a sonic assault the whole album was when you hear it for the first time on a remaster properly. Back in '85, as a fan, I didn't know anything about the makeup cover. Again, the other one was heavily stocked in stores. From what June '80, I think it was June '85. So it's December of that year that I'm really getting into the band. I didn't find the album with a makeup cover until like 1988, and I found it in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in a dingy little backwoods record store, a Singapore and Malaysian issue of that cover, super high glossy, and I sold the damn thing. I should be ashamed of myself. And then the cassette I found I think a local one of those as well out when I was living out there. So that was one of the things. When I think of the album, I still think of the Bruce cover. So,
well, they hosed the last year's version on vinyl, right? They put the one with the remixes on it, the '84 version.
Yeah, it's the '85 remix.
Yeah,
or '85. And how could they do that?
I don't understand it. That's the record company. That's not the band.
Yeah, it's the record company. It didn't have anything to do with the band. I've been through 2 copies of that so far. I've not been able to get one. I had one shipped in from England that arrived with a cracked spine, so that had to go back. Then I had another one come in that had a torn cover. So I don't have one of those. I've just got the HD tracks, which, I'm going to have to check that. I don't recall if that is the correct mix or not.
I got like a glow in the dark one from came out in maybe like '95 or something like that.
I got that,
and that's like the remix too. It's not the original. It's not the original version either.
Yeah, and didn't the credits on one of the the dust sleeves have and CD for years had "I Love It Loud" credited to Paul, which I always found hilarious, but because it's just so un-Paul. It's like
Paul hates that song supposedly too. He can't stand it, but Gene insists on playing it every night.
But you mentioned some of the cool collectibles, Lonnie. Yeah, that 12-inch double grooved 12-inch single with the laser etched autographs on the back. That's one of the cool British issues. There's also the picture sleeve. Most of the European countries and Japan had picture covers of some description. England, of course, had Creatures of the Night as a 12-inch with, instead of having like the blue faces, they did purple. So a little bit of Dynasty coming back. Let me correct myself since I'm speaking English. A little bit of Dynasty coming back in, but a ton of really cool singles from the era, especially Holland singles. Most of them came with picture sleeves, including the black and white cover for, what is it, Killer, with the movable Gene tongue.
Right.
Very nice.
Yeah, for the kid that doesn't have it all, a movable Gene tongue.
For the kid that needs it all, the movable Gene tongue.
All right, so I think the album's a success. It's set off a 4-album run where the production was absolutely astounding, particularly when it comes to the drums. Because I know some people bash on Asylum for its sound, because Paul was doing it. But the drums, through Creatures, Lick It Up, Animalize, fantastic. Michael James Jackson, I think, earns himself a position high on a pedestal for his work with Kiss. Absolutely outstanding, the work he did on this album, on the next, and on the half album he'd done, the project prior. So, absolutely fantastic album. Creatures of the Night, central to my collection. I don't know if I put it in my top 5 these days, but it certainly was for many years. Top 5 album for you, Lonnie?
Absolutely, top 5 album.
Ken?
Top 5 for me.
All right, let's call that a wrap. Creatures of the Night, 10th anniversary, and the 10th KissFAQ podcast. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.